Okie dokie, it is time to rank another soundtrack, and this time I'm going to be doing Super Spike Volleyball, or Super Spike V-Ball, on the NES, and as usual I'm just going to be doing the stages, or in this case, the themes that play during the matches, the volleyball matches, against various cities and countries. I kind of debated whether or not to do the theme that plays during every game when it gets down to the end game, when somebody reaches 13 points and you're only a couple points away from winning. I decided not to include it because even though it plays during the match, it's not a match theme. It's kind of like it's an incidental triggered theme, kind of like getting the invincibility in Mario or something. It plays, but it's not the theme to a particular level or stage, and it's really not written in the same vein as the rest of the stages or matches in this particular case, which is the reason why I set the criteria the way it is and do just stage themes in the first place, so I'm comparing apples to apples, etc. Anyway, as usual, I will preface this by saying that this list is just strictly my opinion. There's nothing objective or fact about this. It's just my opinion, and if you have your own and you want to let it be known, feel free to leave that in the comments. I encourage discussion and debate. So without any further ado, let's get on with the list. By the way, there are 9 songs in this ranking, and the number 9 song is the US Navy matchup. This song is all over the place. It sounds like a medley of all the ideas that were left on the cutting room floor during the sessions when they were coming up with riffs and such for the soundtracks. And these sections don't flow into each other well at all. It starts out jarring enough with this solo that's pretty much stepping all over itself throughout the whole damn thing. It's not played poorly at all. It's just that the choice of the instrument is too stabby for something like a solo. There's going to be more talking about the instrument choices in this soundtrack, some good and some not so much. Anyway, after the solo, it shifts from section to section very abruptly. The sections are pretty mediocre anyway, and they don't sound like they were meant to be in the same song as each other for the most part. They just kind of mishmashed and cobbled together. Number 8, USSR. And boy, these last 2 songs of the World Circuit, the US Navy being the other one, both these songs scream outtake, because this one's filled with some pretty cum-si cum-sa riffs too. But at least these sections flow into each other better, and the rhythm section is pretty goddamn good. There's some really cool drum and bass parts in this song. The leads are kind of bland, but there's definitely redeeming qualities in this tune. Number 7, Las Vegas. The riffs are pretty cool, and there's a nice turnaround at the end of the loop that transitions back to the intro. But the song is underwritten as all hell. It's just one verse that loops around, and that's it. There's at least a couple different riffs. It's not like the 4-second loop in Friday the 13th or anything, but it's like a puzzle with at least half the pieces missing, if not more. And it's a shame because it would have made a really cool end section. That's what it sounds like to me, the end part of a song. But alas, it just is what it is. Number 6, Los Angeles. This is the last match in the US circuit of the game, and the riffs have that sense of finality to them. They give off that feel of importance and high stakes that you get in the final stage of a game. Although the instrumentation probably could have been better chosen. I feel like it was trying to go for a fuller sound, and it kind of sounds more like a demo based on what they chose to run with, but otherwise, it's a pretty good song. Number 5, Brazil. There's a little bit of an ominous feel in this one, especially in the intro. Even with the steady drums and the fast-paced bass notes, it's the lead synth's instrumentation and the reverb that's tossed onto it that mainly gives it that moody feel. I like shit like that, but the riffs themselves sound like they're trying to go for a more upbeat vibe, but the production is feeding that moodiness instead. And the intro does have quite the mood shift into the rest of the song. So it's kind of weird. I get mixed signals from it, but at the same time, I dig it. I don't think it's too much of a clash, although I would say that this may not be the most appropriate song for a volleyball game, but regardless of that, I still like the moodiness and the sound and the overall scope of the song, even if it's a little offbeat. Number 4, Exercise, or Exhibition Mode. The main verse has a very busy riff, not in a crazy solo kind of way, just a lot of notes. It's busy, but it's melodic. The refrain pulls back the reins a little bit with that, so it sounds more like a bridge than a hooky refrain, but it's a nice contrast between the two sections, while at the same time they still flow into each other well. It's still very cohesive, and the whole thing just stays at a nice, steady, mid-tempo beat throughout. Just a nice song. Number 3, Chicago. This one's energetic and up-tempo with a galloping beat. The verses are pretty good, but the refrain comes in with a really nice payoff. It's simpler than the verses, but definitely much hookier. Like I said, there's a lot of energy behind it. The rhythm section definitely makes this one. It otherwise might have sounded a little more bland, but this is an example of the leads and the rhythm section working together, doing very different things and creating this concoction between the two of them. Good stuff. Number 2, Daytona. The main riff stutters at the beginning. I don't know if that was on purpose or if it was just the way that it came out in the emulation, but it's a low-key, cool sound. It's like the notes were muted but very quickly. And the way the bass bounces around behind the melodic lead riff is a nice blend. What is also a nice blend is the way the different sections blend together. I know I've mentioned the transitions a few times here, but I think it's worth mentioning here too. There's 3 main sections that all sound very different from each other, but they flow very well from one section to the next. There's a lot of variation between the sections, and it doesn't really hit a climax or anything. It's just a nice steady flow infinitely around the loop, with plenty of variation throughout the entire song. And number 1, New York. Holy fucking jazz. This might be one of the jazziest songs on the entire NES library, mainly because of the rhythm section. The bass just has this killer jazz groove going on, but man, those drums are just awesome. The snare drum hits have that authentic sound of brushes. It sounds really good, with understated fills here and there. It's some of the coolest sounding drums on the whole NES. The lead track is a nice sounding piano too, and it does the one thing that I don't think jazz music does enough. You know how they say that it's all about the notes that they're not playing? I used to not understand that at all, but I think I do now, or at least I know why I think there's an appeal to it. I might still not get why you're supposed to, but the way I see it is that the notes that you are not hearing are the pauses that make the notes you are hearing basically an anti-melody, so your instinct is to listen to those pauses. But this tune has effective pauses in places that you wouldn't normally hear them, but they still make up a strong melody, if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm way off, but that's what I hear, and I like it a lot. I would love to hear more jazz without this so-called anti-melody. So that's it for this list. Here's a quick recap. Number 9, US Navy. Number 8, USSR. Number 7, Las Vegas. Number 6, Los Angeles. Number 5, Brazil. Number 4, Exercise. Number 3, Chicago. Number 2, Daytona. And number 1, New York. So that's it for the list. What do you think? Do you have any agreements, disagreements? Feel free to leave how you feel about this list or the soundtrack in general in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.